I want to take this time to share the benefit of using the Phocas Budgeting and Forecasting tool with your Vision or Vantagepoint environment. So the end goal with our budget is to set up a budget column within our financial statement, as well as a forecast column right here. So with a lot of our customers, what they'll do is they'll set up a budget at the beginning of their financial period. And then as the actuals start to roll in, we'll have this forecast, which we can consistently update to pull in those actual data. So looking at our budgeting and forecasting tool, so that is right here. So it has a similar look to Excel because again, it's made for accountants, but it has a lot of functionality that makes it a lot easier. So for instance, in this example, we're setting up a budget for 2023, but what we're doing is we actually pull in your actuals from 2022 to set up that 2023 period. So if we look at our project revenue here, for instance, we can, and I should say before that, we can set this hierarchy up however you would like. In this example, we have profit and loss, so our P&L, and then we have our company, office, and then all the way down to that account layer. So again, we have that category, those different companies, then we have different offices, and then we have those different accounts below there. So looking at this data, it's really easy for us to then start adjusting these numbers. So for instance, let's go into our project revenue here. And if we just want to, as an example, for all of our different projects, we expect to do 10% more this year as we did last year, we can set that up. So if I click on spread here, I'm going to go to proportionally by row based on actuals. And so what this is going to do is going to say, okay, take our actuals from 2022, and I just want you to increase that by 10%. And again, it's going to take some of that seasonality into effect as well. So all these numbers, depending on the seasonality from last year, will add 10%. It's going to apply that all the way across the way. And we have some different options if we want to do that evenly. If we expect to do, let's just say, maybe 10 million across the board, we could do that. And we have a bunch of different ways we can set this up to then adjust that spread. So we can start at the highest level, or oftentimes, of course, we don't want to do it at the highest level. We'd rather do it maybe at that account level. So we can have some of that same functionality here. And then we'll have that same option to then spread those numbers across at the GL account level here. So with Phocas is really nice. We can also, it's really easy to start assigning out some of these numbers too. So a lot of our customers, they come to us and they have an Excel sheet potentially that they take, and then they assign out to different individuals and all those contributors, maybe fill in some of their rows and then send that back to the budget owner. But what happens there is sometimes calculations can break, you don't know who changed what. And so what Phocas does, a big goal of Phocas budget forecasting tool is to eliminate some of those errors and just have better track of some of those inputs. So for instance, in this example, actually what we can do is, so this is currently assigned to Don Brown. So when you first set it up, it'll say baseline, and then Phocas, or whoever the owner is, they'll have their name. This is where they'll be able to set up those individual spreads. If I click on this baseline, that's where I can then assign it. And then I can assign this out to whoever that individual user. And I get the question often of can I restrict this data? And that question is absolutely. So I can easily restrict all of this data so the user you assign it out to is only able to see the data. So for instance, if Don Brown is only able to see just these two accounts, or maybe he's only able to see data in Portland, we can restrict it down so he won't see all of this other P&L information as well. We can also add we can see some cell history, so we can see all the different changes that have been made to this when it's been assigned out. If I right click again here and go into, we can create some cell comments, so we can make some different comments in here. Make some different changes here. We have this nice cool thing we can do, comparison row. So right now you can see we have 2022 data as our reference column right here, but we can also pull in different periods as well. So for instance, a lot of our customers during COVID, maybe COVID year wasn't a good year to reference their actuals as we're kind of getting on that time period. So I'm going to reference the year before because that's a better representation of how we're going to do in the upcoming year. So that's just the budgeting piece. There's a lot of different functionality. We can set up some different tabs. We can set up some different headcount, direct labor multipliers, you name it. We can pull those in for some of these numbers to reference. Going to this next piece is our forecast. So the forecast is really nice. So again, we'll set up this budget at the beginning of that time period. And again, budget's going to say, this is where we want to be for the year, but our forecast is going to say, this is where we actually are. So we have a lot of that same functionality within here. We can do a lot of those similar spreads, so based for the rest of the year. But one of the nice things that we have is a couple different options here. So for instance, let's say our direct labor is up 10% and we're just into that February month. What we can do is go into spread here. We have some different options here, where we can update those numbers. But here's one that I like to share. So here is a snap to budget. So this is going to do is going to automatically populate the remaining forecast periods in order to meet budget. So essentially what it's going to say is right now we're 10% over budget. See that little arrow is up. So what I need to do is pull back all of our remaining month periods to reflect that original labor period as well. Now, one of the huge benefits of the forecasting tool too, right, is oftentimes it's really tough in ERPs, and it's not just specific to Deltek, to actually drill down into those numbers. So maybe it's tough to see, why is our consulting is up 16%. And so sometimes what businesses do is they just will pull back for all of Accuterra. Consulting, for instance, we just pull back for the rest of the year. But with Phocas, again, we can really that hierarchy, we can drill down all the way down to see, why are we so far over budget, and we can see some of those other numbers. And then once you actually publish this data, we can go all the way down into that transactional level data to drill down into why some of those numbers are so high. Perfect. Let's see if I can share one other option right here. So if I click into the spread number, we also have this follow actuals number. So this is some of our more predictive analytics. So what we can do is say using follow the actuals, using average actuals, we can say the average of your actual data is then going to be applied to your remaining forecast. So it's pretty much saying, based on how we're doing so far, how are we expected to do for, what are we thinking we're going to do for the rest of the year based on those averages? And then we can apply that. Perfect. And then coming full circle, again, so first we'll publish that budget in that first screen we looked at, and then we'll publish that forecast. And that forecast is just showing where we actually are. And again, the budget is saying where did we want to be when the year started. The very last thing I'm going to share is, again, once we have that data in, we can then pull those budgets into a dashboard if we would like. Right now, we just have it as a column, but you can create it as a pie chart, you name it, get creative within that. We can also see, pull that in as a budget. And then again, we can take this entire dashboard, for instance, or if you want to create any specific report just with the budget in your financial statements, and then we can embed that right into Vantagepoint here. So we can see some of those budget numbers right within Vantagepoint. Please let us know if there's any questions. Thanks so much.